And we return once again to Southern National Motorsports Park as we are set for the feature event here in the Per Year Tank Lines 225 as the late model stock cars are starting to make their way off of the backstretch pit lane and onto the front stretch to get gridded up and going. I'm Blake McCandless, joined alongside, of course, by Eric Brennan. We'll have Jacqueline Drake continuing to get stories as she has all day long, doing a terrific job down there in the pits. And man, what a great race that Pro Late Model Series was. Going through that race late in the going and having all of those restarts, I think it sets us up not only for a great show here, Eric, but think about the fact that we have 33 cars that are going to start in this feature. There are going to be cars all over this racetrack battling, and I think this is going to be one heck of a show.
You mentioned all cars starting. That's a decision that was made collectively by the new ownership group, Jack McNelly and their team. Because normally at a racetrack of this nature, 0.4 of a mile, even for the Thanksgiving Classic, they oftentimes cap it just below 30. So with that in mind, the fact that the decision was made, because, you know, if you're going to start them all, you got to pay them all. And that's something that they were able to take into consideration here. And that also kind of opens up the opportunity for us to kind of recap, I would say, the late model stock touring 12. That's something we're going to be mentioning a lot here. That is 12 drivers that they go through a bit of a selection process based on things such as where they're located, what region of fans they may represent, how active they may be in terms of social and marketing, and so on and so forth. They have to commit to run the full year, but there's several other perks and initiatives that they have. So we'll be mentioning touring 12 drivers throughout the race and throughout the season. And that's what we're talking about. This group of drivers, all of which who were at the media day on Thursday, they get a little bit extra in terms of a thank you for their support, but they also know they bear quite the responsibility to be one of the premier contenders in the late model stocks.
Well, and there's definitely a lot of benefits to that program. You think about half off of all race entry fees is obviously easing the burden on those drivers who come out and want to support and run in this Cars Tour each and every week. $150 in show money, 100 cents off per set of tires. Of course, you can get a case water or perhaps even beer at each event, a built-in provisional, and perhaps most of all, our good buddy Boo Carlisle is down there and is going to do a behind-the-scenes vlog feature of one of our Touring 12 each and every week.
Yeah, and that's tremendous work. Boo does a great job covering his own racing initiatives. Can't imagine what he's going to be able to put together for these Touring 12 drivers. And there was just so much energy, effort, and excitement that has gone into that. And hey, if we were in a position where we did have to send cars home, those 12 would be locked into a field regardless of what happens to them on qualifying. That didn't come into play here today, but it's certainly a blanket of security for those 12 racers to know that they are, in fact, to them, their sponsors, partners, and teams, they are locked into every late model stock show this season, and they'll be there. And did I hear beer? Is that what I heard? That is quite the incentive.
Very good incentive, and of course, even for Boo Carlisle, that is the Kickin' Asphalt vlog that will be following along with one of our Touring 12. And this week, the featured candidate is Mason Diaz, racing at his hometown racetrack. So be sure to tune in for all that. It'll be at every single race, all 19 weekends. The Solid Rock Carrier Cars Tour this year will be featured in that. But of course, they'll follow along in depth with each one every single week. So drivers continue to file onto the front straightaway here, about the back half of the field or so to go before we get things going here. You still see fans continuing to file their way in to this facility, Eric.
I have to say, looking at this site of all these beautiful full-body cars in the front straightaway, it reminds me of when I first went to my home track at Wall Stadium Speedway. There was something about the full-fendered cars. They called them street stocks back then. They evolved to a limited late model. I was able to relate to what I was watching on TV at home and compare them to what I was seeing at the racetrack in front of me. And as we mentioned, this may very well be a bit of a feeder series for some. Josh Berry is the proof in the pudding there. However, this is also a home for some of the baddest and most talented short track racers in the country, many of which travel north, south, and as far west as possible to be able to compete in these races because they know they are the top tier and top echelon of short track stock car racers. I'm sure we're going to see several names in today's field move on to better things someday, but there are staples, there are names who have been a part of this tour and will be for many, many years to come that make this tour so special. They've got a lot to prove despite the excellence they've already achieved.
Well, you can see Matthew Dillner right there running around and getting a bunch of content for Flow Racing and perhaps even a selfie right there. I think you can even hear us over the PA system. Yeah, tip of the cap there from Matthew Dillner. But one thing that has changed a lot about this series, Eric, we're talking about on the racetrack, it's kind of, I want to call it a Cars Tour silly season, if you will. The amount of changes that have happened with many of the top contenders in this series. You think about Bobby McCarty, who after 3 championships with Nelson Motorsports is aligned with R&S Race Cars this year. Cale Gale obviously stepped into that number 22 and will fulfill that ride for this year. Mason Diaz makes the move over to Chad Bryant Racing. I remember even talking to him back at the Thanksgiving Classic. He was running around on a four-wheeler and doing all of those things rather than driving a race car. But even that night, and that was just after the South Carolina 400 where he had a really strong run, he was so optimistic about looking forward to this year and knowing that he has a chance to go out and win every single week.
And talking to Mason a little bit earlier about how he doesn't really race here all that often. Normally, he's got to wear the family duties to help out his father, Michael, and company to be able to make sure that everything is in place as this track is getting ready to run a full calendar slate in 2023. In fact, I'll credit auto racing journalist Matt Weaver for pointing out that there have been offers made on this property, and Diaz and company are going to try to keep this racetrack going as long as possible, and the only way to support it in such a fashion is to come on out to Southern National Motorsports Park, as many fans did today in droves. It would be great to see that continue on well on into the 2023 season and beyond.
Well, you see fans that are kind of making their way back after visiting the refreshment area and getting refreshed and everything with all that you could want, some food and some drink to be able to take in this last late model stock feature. But I think you hit the nail on the head right there. If you look around this property, that's what's going to keep these racetracks open, is fans sitting, lining the grandstands, and putting on a great show.
We talked about the strength of the field. There have been 6 Cars Tour late model stock champions in the Tour's existence since 2015. 4 of them are not only in the field today, but have at the very least, committed or stated they intend to run the full calendar slate. That is quite the plethora of muscle in terms of already accomplished late model stock car competitors in the Cars Tour. And to know that we're going to be seeing those drivers who we will highlight throughout today's racing event and all season long, to see them to be able to come on out, see what they could do in this new turn of the page and new regime. That's something that we're certainly going to be looking forward to, especially here as we're about to kick off this 125 lapper.
Getting close to it. And one thing, looking at the qualifying order here, that is one thing, how close they are. You can see that they are starting to get going now. No command here. We're just going to fire them up and get after it. That's exactly what I want, Eric. And what a great shot right there, as you see these cars are ready to go. And you'll see how they line up here with our starting lineup for the Prairie Tank Lines 225. Here, the 125 lap late model stock portion of this race. Of course, have Carson Quapple, quick time of 15.428, sits on pole. He'll have Ryan Millington, the 2-time Hickory Motor Speedway track champion, to his outside. And one of the names that I was looking forward to seeing race here at this racetrack, as well as so many fans on the property today, that is Deke McCaskill, who will start in 3rd. Brendan Butterbean Queen, who has so much momentum coming into this week, in 4th. Chad McCumbee, can't write him out either. How about Ryan Wilson? Mason Diaz, who we've talked about at length. Minnie Tyrell, Bobby McCarty, and so many more names here. And there's 20 names we could pick off this who could maybe win this race.
One of the coolest stats that I found looking at this, row number 8, Tate Fogelman. His father, Jay Fogelman, longtime Pro Cup racer. He scored his very last Pro Cup win at this racetrack in 2008. Tate trying to carry on the family tradition as we turn the page through the rest of the contenders here. 30 cars listed on the starting grid. And Blake, as you mentioned, we had several more who were also on the docket as far as coming down for the green flag, including that of Brian Obsensky. I knew I was going to do that at least once today. We're just going to call him Obi. It's on the top of the door.
It was
of the
a
car.
competition to see who was going to do it first.
And Jessica Can, who has been one of the most hospitable drivers we've been able to encounter here. She's incredibly great with the fans, us media members, and so much more. And she'll be fun to watch 30-second spot here today as well.
No, she certainly will. And you can see the last-minute preparations going on as we get everything going. And speaking of getting everything going, let's go down and see what's up with Jacqueline Drake in the pit lane.
You guys are talking a lot about people to watch out for, but one driver in particular, the number 16 of Chad McCumbee, Sam Yarbrough, who typically competes in the Cars Tour, is also crewing on that car today. They had a little bit of bad luck throughout the 2022 better luck this year. He said, I found a new penny today in the shop, a 2022 new penny, and I stuffed it in my pocket. Sam said, if we don't have good luck today, that thing is going out the window on the way home. Watch out for the Chad McCumbee team in that 16.
And Chad McCumbee, hopefully he won't be out a penny at the end of the day.
I'll tell you, that's a powerhouse operation there. And Sam Yarborough, someone who was a fixture at the then Myrtle Beach Speedway, took those talents of Florence Motor Speedway. Very similar setup there in terms of racetrack. In fact, that's the next stop on the tour for the Solid Rock Carrier Cars Tour late model stocks. That'll be at Florence Motor Speedway in just a couple weeks' time. But boy, I'll tell you, we've heard stories about lucky pennies working in several different other instances in motorsports. I think of Dale Earnhardt in the 1998 Daytona 500. Perhaps Chad McCumbee is going to be someone who can be able to parlay a good luck charm into a strong start in 2023, as he is one of the Touring 12 members driving that number 16 for the Elliott McCumbee Racing Team.
I tell you what, I really like looking at the front of this field and thinking about somebody like Ryan Millington coming out here. Longtime competitor at Ace Speedway, where I'm the track announcer, so I get to see him race up there a time or two, and just so excited to see him up at the front of this field. We mentioned Deke McCaskill and all of his history here. When we did driver introductions, he was pretty much the largest ovation that was given out by these fans at this racetrack. This has been his sandbox for so long. Andrew Grady as well, somebody who's frequented this racetrack so many times over the course of his career, has won late model stock races at this racetrack, got a great reception as well. And obviously one of the great personalities that we have in this series is we have so many different ones, Andrew Grady, of course, being a very unique one.
Yeah, Grady was someone who self-described as being a little bit blunt, a little bit brash, and it was actually funny to hear during media day obligations, he used the term, hopefully everybody behaves this year. I'll let you all draw your conclusions there, but in all seriousness, Andrew is a fantastic sport. Generational racer. His father, Tony, got to grab the steering wheel at New River 1 week ago, but Blake, we are one lap away from the start of the late model stock season. I can't believe this day is here. So much has gone into this. Happy to be alongside of you. Happy to be here on Flow Racing. Let's do it.
Absolutely. We have waited for so long, for so many months since the announcement of everything that has changed here in the Cars Tour. The one thing that will not change in this series is you are going to see the best drivers, and you are going to see one heck of a show. As the pace truck dives to the safety of pit lane, the field is in the hands of Carson Quapple, your defending champion, and the Per Year Take Lines 225 is green. A little bit of a stack up further back in the field. Up front, much of the same. Quapple able to clear for first. Second goes to Millington, and a good battle for third right now, side by side, as Brendan Butterbean Queen tries to find his way to the bottom on Deke McCaskill.
McCaskill there, going to get up into the door, while Ryan Wilson got a little bit of a nudge from behind by the 16 of Chad McCumbee. He's going to be able to take over that spot just behind the 24 of Mason Diaz, looking to get around that red and white number 2 car. This, though, the battle for third between McCaskill and Brendan Queen and company, as it continues to be Quapple with the early advantage.
And look how low everybody's exiting, especially further on back of the pack, as we see kind of the tail end of that shot. Everybody protecting that inside line early on in this race as the opening couple of laps go on by. It is Bobby McCarty right there. New colors on that number 6 Solid Rock Carriers Ford this year as he moves over to R&S Race Cars, as we've mentioned. And McCarty trying to find a way down. Caden Honeycutt may not give it to him, though.
Ironically, the car that McCarty used to drive is just one car behind the bottom side. That's the Nelson number 22, with the Autos by Nelson number 22 of Cale Gale, trying to follow Honeycutt, Minnie Terrell, and more. But McCarty's making some ground on the top side. We did not see the outside lane work all that well in the Pro Late models. Keep in mind, those motors are a little bit more bogged down. Here, the drivers have a little bit more to work with in terms of making that top lane work. And McCarty is making some hay.
That he is, as you can see him pull alongside Ryan Wilson, and Wilson a little off of turn number 2, and McCarty able to slot right down. So gets that pass done on the high side. You see Minnie Tyrell perhaps looking to do the same behind him. Your top 2 cars on the left-hand side of your screen, though, still separated by about a car length, maybe a little less, as Ryan Millington has kept pace in these opening few laps with Carson Quapple.
You got to love the double box, being able to show Millington pressuring Quapple up towards the front of the pack, and all this heavy racing that is going on well up into the top 5. Brendan Butterbean Queen holds down that 5th spot in the 03. Vinny Tyrell working the top, and a battle for the lead in 3.
And without much of a fight put up, Ryan Millington, 10 laps, about give or take or so into this race, will take the race lead and clear Carson Quapple. So I think that's a situation right there, an example of Quapple exercising a little bit of patience early on in the going.
Just behind of car number 8 of Carson Quapple, you see the 08 of Deke McCaskill. That is someone who was not checked off as an annual entry perhaps this season, but he did state on the Stickered Up podcast earlier this week that he intends to run full time. If you look at his statistics as he makes his series leading 85th start today, he may be one of the favorites, not just for the race win, but for the title. McCarty has gotten to the bottom. Now it's Mason Diaz in the 24 hunting the top side here.
Only a handful of drivers have won here. Actually, only 2 that are in this field as they run right now. Deke McCaskill won at this racetrack in Cars Tour competition. The only other one that's in the field is Brandon Pierce in the number 2 car. So everybody looking to try to get back to victory lane here. We haven't raced here since 2020, so it's been a couple of years in Cars Tour competition. As you can see right there, McCaskill very quickly able to make his way by Carson Quapple for second.
And this is where we start to pose the question, what is the strategy of that 8-car and team? This team did win the Thanksgiving Classic here last November with Josh Berry, with tire conservation in mind. However, it is a bit of an art form as the fight continues throughout the midfield. The question is, how do you balance being able to save your stuff for the latter stages of this race while also keeping yourself in prime position to be able to pull the trigger and get back to the front and not be too far behind in order to make it pay dividends? That's probably the struggle that all these teams are facing, and I'm curious if that 8-car losing 2 spots in the early going is part of their particular strategy for the afternoon.
Well, if you think about what Josh Berry did here in the Thanksgiving Classic, it largely resembled this, giving up a couple of spots, really taking those tires easy, and then by the end of it, it wasn't even a race at that point. So you'd imagine with this team, the exact same team running out here, that may be the line of thinking for somebody like Carson Quapple. Further on back, Ryan Wilson stuck on the outside lane. You can see the 03 of Butterbean Queen able to make his way by. Pulling alongside with him, Caden Honeycutt, who may not be running full-time in the Cars Tour this season, but his presence has been felt for a number of years. Multiple-time winner last year in this series, and even made his Craftsman Truck Series first start of this season earlier at Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
The other white car running just behind at number 81, a Mini Tyrell, as he goes into turn number 1. What an interesting and great story the 2019 Cars Tour Rookie of the Year is. That driver has raised over $475,000 in terms of raising money for cancer research and support. He intends to have several guests at the races here throughout the year, and he is another one of your Touring 12 as he continues to try to work his way up closer to the front. He's looking inside of Brendan Butterbean Queen. However, Queen's going to be able to fall between Honeycutt and Tyrell in that 03 car and nestle into a position down at about the 8th spot.
And talking to Mini Tyrell a little bit earlier today, that was such a big part. Is he's always wanting to give back. He's always looking for a way to not just make it about him, but to make it about others. And it's exciting to hear and talk with him about the plans he has for the future and how, he can be a shining light here in this sport of auto racing.
And he's got heavy pressure right now from a car who I think caught everyone's attention, that blue number 2. There are, no pun intended, 2 number 2 cars in the field. That red and white number 2 is that of Ryan Wilson out of Randolph in North Carolina. That's a family-owned operation, but he was super fast in not only practice but qualifying. And even though he's gotten moved about a couple of lanes up into the top side for a handful of laps, now nursing the inside lane with the left sides on the white line, he's keeping himself perhaps exactly where he would like to be at this point. Just behind Tyrell, with Connor Hall moving into the picture in the 77.
And Connor Hall is somebody that you cannot look over in this series. As we see further on back in the field, Obi, I guess is probably the easiest way we could call him there in car 29. Definitely didn't have the qualifying effort that he so wanted. And back up here with Connor Hall and Ryan Wilson. Hall is going to take the trip down to the bottom side and clear on Wilson. And Chase Burrows wants a piece of it as well, as a late call there for Wilson, who I think had, or at least thought, he had a clear path down to the bottom side. Not so clear right there as Burrows looks like he's going to make his way on by.
You saw the 8 car of Chase Burrow kind of level out in the shot, showing that he got the left sides clear on the apron to avoid contact with Wilson, who now is getting shuffled on towards the back portion of the top 10. In fact, out of the top 10, Zach Miracle has gone by in the 32. There's the 14 of Jared Fryer and Cale Gale out of Mobile, Alabama. That name may sound familiar for many NASCAR fans. He won a NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series event back in 2012, beating Kyle Busch at Homestead Miami Speedway. This is the car that Bobby McCarty wheeled to several late model stock championships, and Cale Gale has stated publicly several times he really hopes to make the most of this opportunity, and he's working his way further forward.
And the fact that he doesn't have a ton of late model stock car experience, this is really the first time in a decade or so that he's run anything full time, but has very limited experience in these late model stock cars. But he's leaning on all of the different types of racing that he's done leading up to this point, and thinks that despite the fact in this car he may not have the most experience, he still thinks he can go out here and run with some of the best. As further on up the road, you can see Minnie Tyrell, who has been stuck on the high side. Chase Burrows is able to capture another spot as car 81 in Minnie Tyrell, trying to find a way back down to the bottom.
The car that initiated the Congo line was that of Connor Hall in the Chad Bryant Racing number 77. The stat that jumped, trouble, got 2 cars into the wall in turn number 1.
Obuzinski and Dickens up at the top side of 1 and 2. For the first time in the late model stock car portion of this season, the Volt battery caution waves for the first time.
Obuzinski appears to have shortened up the back end of his Chevrolet-bodied race car. The driver, who initially hailed from Long Island, New York, now calls Franklinton, North Carolina his home, and simply goes by the name Obi due to the uniqueness of his last name. But he is someone who is certainly a character. As a matter of fact, he was pretty much all smiles throughout the day here. And Blake, I know you had a chance to catch up with him, and even during driver introductions, we mentioned that there may not be many more opportunities for Obi to be on the stage in terms of late model stock car racing, because he might be making a bit of a change here.
The GM World Class Technician has spent 24 years in the sport, and has been out there saying on his podcast that this will be his retirement tour from late model stock car racing all throughout this year, and he is looking forward to coming back here with Thanksgiving Classic. It'll be his last race. He talked about he wants all of his family to come in here and have a great time, but unfortunately for Obuzinski, not starting out this Swan Song Tour for him the way he would have liked to have been. And I love something he was talking about a little bit earlier when he says, as far as tire conservation races go a little bit, he says, I want to be sick when I'm done driving. I don't want to ride around at 70 or 80% all the time. I want to go out there and run 100% all the time. As we saw one car down on the pit lane a little bit earlier, that is Dickens, who is getting service after being involved in that accident. Obuzinski is on pit road as well, and even Brandon Pierce has made his trip down to the pit lane as well, who was running all the way back in 31st before that caution flew.
We saw the feverish work being performed on the Mitchell Mott Performance number 20 of Joshua Dickens, the driver who has moved up from legend car ranks. He won a Dirt National event in 2022, but the opening foray in his 2023 late model stock car campaign with the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour has taken a little bit of a beating here early on with 95 laps still to go. Joshua Dickens, however, is one of the drivers who is slated to run the full late model stock season. So an opportunity at redemption perhaps could lie just a couple of weeks ahead at the Florence Motor Speedway. But it looks as though they have gotten that car bandaged back up, and they're going to send Josh back out to see if he can learn a little bit more here, despite the bodywork damage on the left side.
And already quickly early on in this race, 30 laps in. I mean, that just went by so quickly over the course of that run. As continue to look out over the grandstands here and continue to appreciate these fans that have shown up here to see some of the best late model stock car racing in the world. And you see right there scrolling across on your screen, Ryan Millington, who has kept the race lead since he took it. Deep McCaskill now has an opportunity to try to take it from him. I want to see the balance of both of these drivers. One in Millington, who is so successful in his own right, but Deep McCaskill, who trounces this field in terms of experience, not only in the Cards Tour, but at this racetrack specifically.
Well, the number 15 has been good so far today. We saw Mike Hopkins grab the win in the Pro Late Model ranks, his number 15 car, and Ryan Millington, who also has a bit of a knack for winning some of these high-priority races. He won the Bobby Isaac Memorial back in 2021 and actually has a Cars Tour win under his belt. Blake, it came at a track that you're very familiar with back in 2020, Ace Speedway. It's also where he got his best finish last year, which was a 4th at Ace, and hopefully we'll be seeing Millington many more times. Only ran twice last year. Perhaps starting off the season the best way possible. We may be seeing a lot more Ryan Millington here. Still a long way to go, but nevertheless, this initial off-the-jump and kickoff performance has been quite impressive.
Yeah, it certainly has, and Millington even made his way out to Hickory this past weekend. He was helping out Graham Holler and Austin McDaniel with their efforts and the weekly racing going on at Hickory Motor Speedway, which, by the way, they're racing tonight. You can watch that right here on Flow Racing, so don't even have to turn the dial.
The perfect plug by Blake McCandless. I love it. As you can see, the field in double wide formation. Looks as though we're about a lap and a half from getting back underway. So 95 laps to go here in the first race of the year for the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Late Model Stocks here for 125 laps total here at the Southern National Motorsports Park. And I have to say, Blake, it was nice to see that for the most part, that was pretty clean. But first, let's go trackside here from Jacqueline.
Toby, we just saw you on the track. It looks like you're retired for this evening. What happened?
Yeah, just in the seat. The car was really good. We started dead last, but man, we were coming there. And got to thank my crew, Power Base. We hate it with a finish like that, but he just pinched down on me. And when he did, he came across real late, and I jumped it back and ended up back into the wall. I'm okay. Family's okay. So we'll live to race another day. But thanks to all the fans.
95 laps to go in this one. Millington will lead us back to the green flag. McCaskill may have had it at the stripe as he gets a great launch there on the top side into 1 and 2, though. Give it to Ryan Millington off the corner. They are side by side for 3rd, for 5th, and for 7th behind him.
Heads up move there by McCaskill in that 08 car to be able to drop back in line. New colors on McCaskill's car. Actually debuted the paint scheme just a couple of days ago on his social media outlets. He gets back to the gas early on the exit of turn 2 and pulls right up to Millington for the race lead, while Quaffle and McCumbee continue to run door to door for 3rd. Mason Diaz just behind in the black and blue, number 24 and 5th.
And I don't think anybody can be surprised here that at his family's home track that you see Mason Diaz running this well. As Chase Burrow there on the top side. You could say the same with Brendan Butter being queen as well. Chad McCumbee is making that outside lane work for him. And even Bobby McCarty picked up another spot on this restart running that 2nd lane.
And one element that has got to continue to pester these drivers on the main straightaway is the setting sun down in turn number 1. Vantage points to be able to perfect your entry to turn 1 has got to be getting a little bit more difficult. Even if you elected to run a tinted visor, as I don't think many expected this race to perhaps go off into the night, but it very well could. But either way, these drivers are going to have to be very careful deflecting off the outside retaining wall and setting up their approach to the first corner, because that sun is looking right at them.
I mean, you can see from that camera point right there, you can see the helmet, you can see the gloves working. That's how bad that vision is into turn number 1. As you see Brendan Queen, perhaps a little contact there with Zach Miracle, and they collected up as Queen wanted the path down to the bottom, and Miracle may have gotten the worst end of it. You can see the damage on the right front of his car.
Queen's going to be able to protect the spot. Miracle with the glove save up there in 3 and 4. Now under fire from one of their former Car Store champions, Sharon Fryer, to the inside. So, Butterbean Queen's able to protect the spot. It appears as though, despite the fact the Hoosier lettering's been rubbed off that left rear, he's able to hold on to his position for the moment in the running order, while Miracle has yet to find a void to fall into on the low side.
And we have seen that theme play out time and time again. As you see Burrow go on by, Cale Gale will not make the job any easier for Zach Miracle to try to get down. Landon Pimbleton is going to join the fray as well. Landon Pimbleton, somebody who is making his 4th career start here in the Cars Tour Late Model Stock Series. Obviously, he's a name that many late model stock fans are familiar with. He was the 2021 Valley Star Credit Union 300 winner in his first attempt, and well, that's something that follows you for life, Eric.
The next car working to the inside of Zach Miracle is the number 67 of Cameron Boland. They picked up a new sponsor in his hometown of Sharon, South Carolina. It's the Sharon Grill. And they promised, along with supporting his racing efforts, they'd be streaming every race live on Flow Racing all season long. That young gun, who recently moved up to a late model stock car, still learning this effort. They're getting quite the show back at the Sharon Grill here this afternoon.
That they are. Is looking further on back in this field, one car that was up there was Ryan Wilson that has fallen all the way back. But you could see back up front, 6 cars have separated themselves from the rest of the pack. You could see Millington there still maintaining the race lead with 83 laps to go. Deke McCaskill holding serve right now in second. But you can see the gap right there on your shot. Still a pretty decent gap between your top 6 and the rest of the field.
Field flashes by the speed shot at the end of the front straightaway. And Blake, this may be that time in the race where there are differing agendas amongst most of the field. One of the coolest stories I ever heard in terms of tire conservation came from NASCAR Hall of Famer Bobby Labonte when he jumped into asphalt modified racing on tracks like this. He says it's an imperfect science. You can never quite perfect the art that is measuring that delta to gain the most out of the tires you have to work with and knowing when exactly that right time is to go and to make it work. So you cycle your way back up towards the front. That difference in agendas is going to continue to show itself throughout the field as we still got heavy racing going on here inside the top 10 as Connor Hall was all over the back end of Chad McCumbee 16 off of 2.
Well, indeed we do, and I think I'm going to refer to one of our new owners here at the Car Store. The one phrase I've always heard out of them is, what's in every long run? A short run. Well, not exactly the case here in these late model stocks. 125 laps on these tires, so you certainly have to have it. But at a certain point, you can save all you want. You have to be able to go out and make that short run speed when it matters, because at the end of the race, you're going to throw these tires away, or at least you're not going to run them in one of these races anymore. So you can save all the tire you want. You can have it left at the end of 125 laps, but if you don't use it, you just lost a lot of time.
And one of the ways in which you may accidentally use up your stuff a little bit faster than you want to is navigating lap traffic. And there are a couple of very surprising names at the tail end of the running order right now. Blake, we have a pair of our Touring 12 drivers currently on the same straightaway as the race leaders, just in front of Millington and McCaskill.
And that is Brandon Pierce and Jacob Hefner. And Pierce is somebody who was very strong in the icebreaker at Florence Motor Speedway. We know the tire conservation that matters for that race. But even Pierce has said these tire conservation races work into my wheelhouse. So interesting that he has kind of fallen back to where he is right now and may be in danger of getting lapped. As you can see, the running order scroll at the top of your screen. Brandon Pierce is not a name that you would expect, even with tire saving, to be down there around 30th.
And if that is the agenda, this may be time where he's got to turn up the wick in order to stay on the lead lap. You see Bobby McCarty there in that number 6 car, working his way into the frame. That's another team for the RNS race cars. Marcus Richmond and Steve Stallings were the ones who were able to work out a deal with the multi-time champion of McCarty as Zach Miracle goes way high in 1 and 2.
Zach Miracle has had one heck of an event the last 20-some-odd laps or so. Has been sliding around, made contact with a couple of drivers. You can see him fall behind Ryan Wilson. You have to think that the damage he got from that contact with Brendan Queen is having to have a negative effect on that race car as he is plummeting through the field, and that car is just not handling to his liking right now.
The next one who sees Zach Miracle on their respective hit list was that of Tate Fogelman as they come down the main straightaway. Here's that battle. Cale Gale on the 22, the 0 of Landon Pendleton, and that 67 of Cameron Boland. Now, they only had an opportunity to break in that late model stock this past Thursday. They were able to make it out to the extended practice day that the track offered due to the ill forecast on Friday. And Boland, who admitted to both of us, Blake, he was a little bit nervous about this opportunity. So far, you can't tell if there's any butterflies in that young gun's stomach. He is doing exactly what he needs to inside the top 15.
A great run there for Boland, and running right in front of somebody who started up front right there in Minnie Tyrell, as we have 69 laps here to go at Southern National Motorsports Park. Only a couple of cars have called it quits, and that is Brian Opinski, unfortunately, who has brought it down. And we talked about him earlier in the contact that he had down into turn number 1. Back towards the front of the field, though, behind Carson Quapple running in 3rd. You see your 6th and 7th place runners, Caden Honeycutt and Chad McCumbee. And Honeycutt, somebody who's worked his way forward. Talking to him a little bit earlier, he said this place was like Florence in terms of tire strategy. He even told me that they took their practice tires off, and there was just a big chunk of racetrack that had some crystals in it. So that's a sign of a surface that has been wearing out. And this surface is 30 years old. Back up front, though, Ryan Millington starting to lose a little bit of the advantage that he enjoyed over Deke McCaskill as we work to 65 laps to go. You can call that about a 1 or 2 car length gap between the top 2. And again, lap traffic is not too far away. You can see Jacob Hefner, another name that we didn't think we would see at this point, perhaps in danger of going a lap down.
You mentioned the surface being of age. Well, one of the drivers that may favor is the one chasing down your leader in Deke McCaskill. He considers Southern National Motorsports Park his home track. We talk about the Thanksgiving Classic, the big annual race that's held here on Thanksgiving weekend. Well, not only is McCaskill a winner here back in 2006, he's placed in the top 5 9 times in just 15 starts. Let alone the fact that he's got a couple of trophy cases full of weekly racing series wins and victories under his belt. So McCaskill is someone who may be a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to this racetrack as we hit the iRacing halfway point this time through. Ryan Millington getting a couple of extra bucks in the pocket. And you see Blake, he's running a bit of a clear visor there at the windshield of that car. You got to bet he's straining his eyes a little bit as he goes into 1.
I love the camera shots as you can see almost their entire facial features with how bright that sun is into turn number 1. But of course, one driver that I've kept my eye on throughout this race, Eric, and that is Connor Hall. You can never write him out as somebody who came and took the series by storm last year, started all of last year, got 3 wins, was 2nd in the points, and is somebody that time and time again, it doesn't matter what type of racetrack we go to, Connor Hall is going to have something to say about the outcome of this race.
The stat that jumped off the page for me in terms of Connor Hall was he has only made 16 starts, and in those 16 cars, late model stock starts, he qualified on the pole 4 times. That's 25% of the races he's entered, he's qualified on the pole. So when he clocked in 12th earlier today, it was a bit of a surprise, and we're seeing him start to work his way further forward. As you mentioned, perhaps that was all part of the strategy. Even take it easy in qualifying so you got more under your belt come race time.
Well, and Connor Hall, he's somebody that he kind of wanted to talk about having some more fun this year. He was almost too much business ready coming to the racetrack last year and talked about just kind of letting loose a little bit. We know that he's going to show up determined and ready to go, but wanted to take a little bit of a looser approach this year in terms to how he approached these races, but I don't think that'll slow him down at all. As Mason Diaz, you could see leading this line of 5 cars that you could throw under a blanket right now. This is the battle for 4th. Diaz and Bobby McCarty. Now McCarty, a big run in 3 and 4, and is going to go to the inside to try to take that as Diaz checks up, and Caden Honeycutt gets the worst end of that, and I don't know why they lifted right there, but Honeycutt gets the worst end of it.
That was a bizarre set of circumstances. The race stays green, and look at all the damage on Honeycutt's cars. Now the caution flies for the competition yellow after 40 consecutive green flag laps, and that is some big-time hood damage on Caden Honeycutt's car.
And that was a strange, I don't want to call it a brake check right there. We hadn't seen them get close at all, but obviously Caden Honeycutt gets the worst end of that deal. As the competition caution comes out, and it was at a good time for Caden Honeycutt.
That hood damage reminds me of what Brendan Butterbean Queen suffered back at North Wilkesboro Speedway 1 year ago. A bit of a stack up during the race. In fact, late in the race, took Brendan Queen out of a top 5 running position because the car started to overheat. Even with damage of that nature, Honeycutt and company are certainly going to want to do whatever it takes, not only to flatten the hood of that car so we can see a little bit better going off into the corner, but they've got to make sure that the radiator and the front nose of that car are clear so he doesn't develop a bigger problem in the final 55 laps of this race.
A tough deal there for Caden Honeycutt. as the second Bolt battery caution flag of the afternoon comes out here with 55 laps to go here at Southern National Motorsports Park. There was so much anticipation, Eric, that this race is just flying by for me. It's flying by for everybody. It's going so quickly. As we talked about earlier, though, some of those drivers that were in danger of going a lap down may have been a strategy play, and you could see Honeycutt pulling up to the side of Mason Diaz under caution.
Expressing a little bit of displeasure there, it appears. Perhaps gave it a couple laps for his spotter and race team to try to get a good look at how bad that damage is. If you want to try to find a silver lining, the Mike Dorn Racing logo is now clearly visible on the front end of that car. But here's what happened off the corner.
And Diaz just slows up significantly. Connor Hall got a piece of it as well. He was on the top side battling there with Bobby McCarty. You see Honeycutt just has nowhere to go. Checks up. Connor Hall gets a piece of it. Nowhere for him to go either. And that's just a bizarre set of circumstances. You can see it once again. Look at Connor Hall here. Lifts the rear tires up off of Caden Honeycutt's car.
Both of them seem to slow at a similar pace setting up to turn number 1. Quite a bizarre incident here as everybody was able to keep it straight. Connor Hall appears to have gotten away with one there as he was almost up to the fuel cell of the back end of Caden Honeycutt's car.
I wonder if we were just coming up on the competition caution. I wonder with the sun coming down in their eyes as they head off into turn number 1, if perhaps they thought, whether they saw the flagman waving it accidentally or something, that would have been the reason that Diaz lifted right there, because otherwise I can't explain it. And it wasn't a case, I don't think, of him brake checking or showing any type of displeasure because they hadn't hit each other.
Agreed, especially with the 10 car who wasn't trying to make the move down on the inside. So quite the bizarre incident to lead us up to the competition caution. But as you can see, several teams electing to come down to take advantage of the pit lane being open. One of them was a very fast qualifier, and that of Brian Wilson. You see the red and white number 2 there, right side of your picture with that Ford Mustang bodywork car. Currently, to the attention of the family-owned team, after he timed in 6th fastest, stayed up in the top 10 for most of the race, but started to struggle a little bit here as we hit the midway point.
You can see work going on the right side of the car of Jody Messimer in that 00 machine. Somebody else who's a experienced veteran here in short track racing was the 1998 Caraway Speedway mini stock track champion. So he's been at this for a number of years as Jody Messimer's. The rest of the field, we saw who else came down. We saw Isabella Robusto made a pit stop as well. The 97 is getting service at this moment of Jason Kitzmiller. And a little bit of debris you can see right there. Looks like a trash bag. It's ventured its way out onto the racetrack. Surprised, though, that the damage is not worse for Honeycutt. He didn't pull down to get that fixed, so the hood's bent. As long as he's not overheating, though, I think he'll be all right.
Yeah, objective number 1, make sure you can see. Objective number 2, make sure that the car is not, you're not starting to see some of the temperatures go up on the gauges on the dashboard of that number 10 car from Mike Dorn Racing. And ironically, as things fall into place, we saw a bit of frustration between Honeycutt and Diaz. They're going to restart nose to tail as we check in with Jacqueline Drake, trackside.
Update from the pits here. The number 2, Brandon Pierce, came in just struggling with the handling on that Lee Pulliam performance, and they're going to try to make a few adjustments, send him back out. So earlier we saw him kind of in the back of the field there, and it was in fact handling. In addition, the number 42 came in of Carson Brown. They thought that he had a bent rear end, but they checked it. The team said it looks all good, and they sent him back out.
All right, so definitely not a strategy play there for Brandon Pierce.
Yeah, and believe it or not, we talk about some of these veteran drivers who, we like to see drivers make the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour Late Model Stock Series home. Brandon Pierce is one of them. He's in his 6th Cars Tour Late Model Stock season, and it's pretty much a bit of a newfound injection of energy and pep in his step, at least from what he was telling us at Media Day, because it's a partnership with Lee Pulliam Performance. We've highlighted Brendan Queen's success and how fast he's been, but for Brandon Pierce, it's been quite the showing in that Lee Pulliam Performance number 2 car. At least going into the year, he seemed very optimistic, and upbeat. And this is not the start that they were looking for, but we've still got a long way to go with 55 laps remaining. if they could use some of these caution laps to dial in whatever the handling gremlins may be, maybe we'll see that 2-car cycle his way back up towards the front.
Well, one more time before we get going green here, we talk about that incident with Caden Honeycutt. The other possibility that I wasn't thinking of, but I think is a good point, that perhaps they wanted 5th on the restart, that they were checking up to get down to the bottom. And you've seen it, time and time again at NASCAR racetracks, games being played off of pit road in each of the NASCAR series, and perhaps that's the same gamesmanship that was going on there with Bobby McCarty, Caden Honeycutt, and Mason Diaz. Pace truck is off once again, 55 laps to go. Millington and McCaskill, your top 2. And what a great launch for McCaskill. Clear, we'll see if the restart stands, but for now, Deke McCaskill is gone, and Millington left in the dust there on that restart.
Through 3 and 4 they come. They'll come across the start-finish line. Looks as though the restart is cleared. McCaskill to the point with 54 laps to go. Diaz and Honeycutt nose to tail on the top lane. 24 and 10 down low. McCarty in the 6, McCumbee in the 16. Diaz falling back into the clutches of that damaged front bumper of Honeycutt as they slide off the corner with McCumbee taking the spot away from Diaz.
McCumbee wrestles that away as Brendan Butterbean Queen down on the bottom side of the racetrack, side by side. He goes with Mason Diaz, trying to get his way closer up into the top 5 of this one. You can see Honeycutt still holding strong despite the damage that he has, and Diaz able to get back down to the bottom. Honeycutt, the lone driver, left on the top side.
At this point, that front end damage has got to be acting like a bit of a parachute now that there is no car in front of him to disrupt the clean air that is hitting him as the lone soldier trying to make the top side of the racetrack work. You see Connor Hall with a little bit of a divot in the front end of his white and blue number 77 on the low side. It looks as though he did sustain some damage, but definitely not as much as Honeycutt, who squeezes between Hall and Jared Fryer to get himself back down to the bottom.
Wonder how much Jared Fryer has been saving over the course of this race, as Honeycutt still trying to hang on and hold his place up inside the top 8. Still McCaskill, your race leader, back out front. You can see he still has about a car length lead or so, call it that, over Ryan Millington, and Connor Hall is not complete with his march through the field just yet as he goes side by side with Mason Diaz.
Pair of Chad Bryant Racing teammates going door to door there with Diaz on the outside, Hall on the inside. Now here's Honeycutt drawing even with Mason Diaz for another position up here in the top 10. Honeycutt will make the pass. Diaz drops in a line. While all this is going on, we'll report the fact that Isabella Robusto has brought her Lee Falk Racing driver development team number 55 to the pit area. It appears that car may be overheating or something amiss underneath the hood. Tough break for Robusto, who will be pulling double duty all season long.
She did pit during that last caution, so perhaps those gremlins were showing some early signs there for Isabella Robusto. We'll check in and see how she is doing in a little bit. You can see McCaskill and Millington, 46 laps to go, and you know, Eric, this is kind of the time we talk about where you kind of have to show your stuff if you have it. This is kind of working into that portion of the race or if you have it, you're going to have to start to showcase it. And I'm interested to see Carson Quapple, who led this race early, has drifted back a little bit, what he has in that number 8 Bass Pro Shop Chevrolet.
I think we got our answer on Robusto's car. You could see the water that was coming out of the overflow. Definitely some overheating gremlins for the Fort Mill, South Carolina native, whose late model stock car series debut for 2023 will come to an end here with about 44 laps to go after making 4 starts in 2022. Here's Brendan Butterbean Queen to the back bumper of Chad McCumbee off 4.
And this doesn't surprise me about Brendan Butterbean Queen. When we were watching even earlier this year, the Icebreaker, how far behind the pack that Brendan fell in that first run and yet stormed up and nearly found his way back up into the top 5 after spinning and qualifying. So Queen, definitely one that, at least with Lee Pulliam performance here, has really shown the ability to have that late run speed.
I know we saw Matthew Dillner walking about the grid before the engines were fired earlier, and he got to catch up with Brendan Queen at Media Day. And I'll tell you, there's a clip of this on the Flow Racing social outlets. I know Morgan Wallen came up. I know that there was some Tim Richmond stories. You want to talk about a powerful personality who's also a very talented race car driver? Look no further than Brendan Queen. He's quite the character, and he's trying to vie for a top 5 spot here with 40 to go.
Deke McCaskill still your leader. You can see some more lap traffic up the road, including Ryan Wilson, who was falling from the 6th starting spot and is hanging on. And you can see him get out of the way for your race leaders and let them settle it amongst themselves. And Deke McCaskill is somebody who would rather focus on maybe the things that he doesn't do so well. When he was on the Stickered Up podcast earlier this week, he mentioned time and time again, everybody else, they wanted to talk about how well he does at certain racetracks. And his focus was on, well, I need to get a little bit better at some other racetracks that we go to. I struggle a lot at Ace. I need to try to find a way to figure that place out, figure out Florence Motor Speedway. I'd have to imagine, though, all the tire wear at that racetrack, if he's showing well here, I think that bodes well for Deke McCaskill, who, again, not a part of the Touring 12, but like you mentioned, wants to compete full-time this year. And if he does, he is a threat to win this championship.
Without a doubt. McCaskill is certainly going to be one to watch here no matter how this race unfolds, as we're starting to see that point where I think it is go time for just about the entire field. The mixed agendas that we have, we are probably just at that point in the race where everyone is on the same agenda, especially this group of cars. The leaders are now on the same straightaway as these battles that are taking place that include Zach Miracle and more. And speaking of hitting the go button, Carson Kvapil is starting to close up on the front too. And that's a lot of body work hanging off of the 04 machine down to turn number 1. And Ronnie Bassett Jr., he has ripped the nose off the right side of that car, and the hood is buckled way in.
I saw him pass us about a lap ago, but it had not turned into this, as Ronnie Bassett Jr., again, making a full-time effort in late model stock racing. But you can see that entire right side of the car is completely torn up. You have to imagine that at some point the black flag will be displayed for him to come down and try to get that fix.
At this point, Cale Gale and Cameron Boland don't necessarily know which way to go as the black flag is displayed here, and the bodywork comes off the car in turn 1. That's going to be another volt battery caution. Just as Cars Tour officials displayed the black flag for Ronnie Bassett Jr. out of Lexington, North Carolina, he loses a piece of that bodywork that was on the right side and front nose of his car. And the yellow flag will fly with about 33 laps to go.
See, the debris is somewhat settled here at the bottom of the racetrack. Kind of outside of the groove, you can see a lot of the rubber that's been kicked up over the course of this race. And not going to be an extensive cleanup. I think that's all it'll take, just picking it up and taking it out. So, quick cleanup for this volt battery caution.
That's a good day at the office for that Cars Tour official there, just passing it back to its rightful owner. That may be a souvenir for some of the fans that came out here, but it appears there is still work to be done. You can see the valence of the right side of that car up like a sail on a sailboat. I appear there may still be some work to be done there on Ronnie Bassett Jr.'s car, the Jerry Hunt Super Center Chevy. Bassett is someone who we've seen make several NASCAR Xfinity starts, 2 in 2022. He's got an ARCA Menard Series East win under his belt back in New Smyrna in 2017. But his season opener is not off to a flying start. Let's check in with Jacqueline Drake.
One driver retiring for the night, the number 2 of Ryan Wilson. What happened for you?
Honestly, I have no excuse. We just riding early and got freight train. We were running up front, at the start. Got freight train back on the outside. Still just trying to save stuff, and still just killed our tires. So I have no excuse. We're just that bad. So I just finally parked it.
A tough afternoon for Ryan Wilson, who started off so well up in the 6th position. Is somebody who has been around for a very long time, has had some very strong runs in the Valley Star Credit Union 300 a time or two. And even his helmet that he posted on social media a little bit earlier this week, a lot of memories from him and his family racing at Caraway, Martinsville, Motor Mile. So there's a lot of pictures and whatnot on it. It's a great little story, and I think a cool design for him and that family racing operation as you continue to see the work done for Ronnie Bassett Jr.
It may have been an easy day at the office for the Cars Tour official to retrieve the bodywork that went astray. Not the case for Ronnie Bassett's team right now. They're going to try to find a way to bolt this car back together and get Ronnie back out there. I want to touch on one more thing with Ryan Wilson. How about the show of sportsmanship? The minute that he knew the handling was gone on that car and he went a lap down, he didn't put up a fight, went right to the apron and pulled it into the pits. That is veteran experience from a driver who's been around for quite some time, and he was actually riding a bit of a wave of momentum. His last race was the season finale at Caraway. In fact, both of his starts were at Caraway Speedway, and he finished top 5, came home 4th there. So you have to admire the fact, knowing everything that's at stake, that you're up against competition that is certainly, in a position of flex, if you will, and they decided that since it's not their day, not worth tearing up their stuff or anybody else's, and they yielded to the rest of the competition, at least for today.
Well, and it's been a black cloud for him at Southern National Motorsports Park. In 4 starts, he has not seen the checkered flag in 3 of those starts. So it has been a tough going for him at this 4/10 of a mile racetrack. A couple more cars are on the pit lane continuing to get service. We mentioned Isabella Robusto earlier. Minnie Tyrell right now has pulled his way down to the pit lane as well. Tate Bolgeman, this past circuit around the racetrack, has come to the attention of his crew. I would imagine we would get this race going here in just a couple of laps. And I know we were talking about it a little bit earlier over the course of this run, Eric, but something's telling me that Carson Quapple and even Bobby McCarty, who's made his way up to 4th, they have something left to say here these last 33 laps.
I don't know about you, Blake, but I'm certainly hoping that everybody here at Southern National and those of you watching along on Flow Racing is getting just about as giddy as I am with these 33 laps to go, because this is the point where everything you have done up to this point comes to a collective head. It's up to everyone to see how aggressive they want to be in the waning stages. If Carson did in fact save enough, he's got to start going now. Let's hear from Jacqueline.
Down here with the 04 Ronnie Bassett Jr. And right here you can see that Jerry Hunt Super Center sponsor. If you are a Asphalt Modified fan, you may recognize that brand. It's typically on modifieds out at Bowman Gray Stadium, also here on Flow Racing. Now, many fans might be looking at the 04 team saying, why are they working so hard to get him back out with all of that damage? Right now, it's all about the points. Looking at this full season, if you're going for the title, you need to have a solid finish, and all these other cars that are now out for the evening, they can get those positions ahead.
Very good to touch on there from Jacqueline. And you think about just the latest example in the Pro Late Model race. So much happened over the course of that race in the last 20 or 30 laps or so to change up the running order, and that's what these teams do. They know every single race, every single position matters in terms of the points and chasing a championship. 32 laps to go here at Southern National Motorsports Park. Ryan Millington and McCaskill side by side for the race lead. Quapple is clear for 3rd. McCarty still stuck on the top side in that battle for 4th. And Millington now. Carson Quapple, we said he may have something left. He may just indeed do that. Is almost under Ryan Millington into turn number 1. Millington slips up. This battle is not over.
Quapple there trying to get up to the left rear quarter panel of Millington. Could not do it there. Now trying to beat him back to the power off 4. Still in the tire tracks while McCaskill breaks away. Double wide, 3 rows deep. Here's Mason Diaz following his Chad Bryant Racing teammate through on the bottom of the 24. Jacob Hefner. Where did he come from? He was about to get lapped the last time you mentioned his name.
He is storming up through the front of the field and perhaps had a trick up his sleeve. In doing so, as McCarty and Queen make contact into turn number 1. Queen scoots on by, and McCarty, who has free fallen since the drop of the green flag on this restart, falls back yet another position.
Queen was not going to be willing to leave that door open, even though McCarty wanted to slam it on shut. Just behind, another Touring 12 driver. That's Chase Burrow in the 8. Under fire from Landon Pembleton in the 0, with Jared Fryer in the frame as well. This battle all going on throughout the top 10. We're starting to see more slipping and sliding by the whole field. It's go time. Honeycutt on McCumbee.
Honeycutt with the damage, not slowing him down at all as he goes by for that 4th spot. Connor Hall is in the top 5 now as well. 27 laps to go. McCaskill has checked out a little bit, but boy, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Where did Jacob Hefner come from as he's taking another spot on Mason Diaz?
How much importance is saving your stuff to the very end? Hefner is showing us all in the Carroll Speed Shop number 95. He's up to and past Diaz to move further up the running order in the top 10, and he may not be done yet. It'll be 25 to go next time by. Butterbean Queen looking to lay a fender on Diaz in 3.
And Queen has gotten his hands dirty these last couple of laps, trying to pull up here to Mason Diaz, and Diaz may have lost the feel good in those tires as Queen goes on by. Diaz slides up the racetrack, and Queen will have that spot into turn number 3. So Brendan Butterbean Queen late on the charge as further up the road, yet another spot for Jacob Hefner.
Hefner may have perfected the art of saving his stuff to the very end. He gets by Chad McCumbee here. Move Hefner now up into 6th. Lying ahead is the top 5. Is there enough time for Hefner to continue the charge as things continue to be very physical behind him as Queen dives low on McCumbee?
And for Jacob Hefner, the 2022 late model stock car most popular driver, has just talked again and again about how close he has been to winning in the Cars Tour. Just little situations here and there have not worked out in his favor. And up the road, Caden Honeycutt now under assault from Connor Hall for 4th.
No surprise, you start to see Connor Hall's name start to climb up the running order here as we approach 20 laps to go next time by. And here's the fight for second. Quapple inside of Millington, got the fender inside in turn 1. Quapple will power his way up to and clear Millington for second spot.
And exactly what Carson Quapple needed, not only to move into second, but to do it quickly. As 20 laps to go are on the board, McCaskill is about half a straightaway ahead, but there is a ton, and I mean a ton, of lap traffic that will come into play should this continue to run out. So Quapple not out of it yet as McCumbee loses another spot to somebody else who appears to have saved his tires to the end, and Chase Burrow.
In the Pro Late Model race earlier, we saw your eventual race winner be able to maintain pace all the way up to and through to the checkered flag in Mike Hopkins. Is Deke McCaskill in a similar position? Has he perfected what it takes to be able to fend off all of these hard chargers that are cycling their way up towards the front of the pack, including that of Carson Quapple, who is the newcomer to second spot just a few laps ago, and that gap visibly appears to be closing with McCaskill in lap traffic.
We talked about how far up the road that lap traffic was. Well, it is here for Deke McCaskill, and you can see it out the window here from the broadcast booth. That gap for first and second starting to shrink between Deke McCaskill and that bright black and orange of Cason Quapple.
Here comes McCaskill getting held up a little bit there by Kitts Miller. Now goes to the high side of the number 97. Gave a little bit of a warning shot there that time as they came off the corner to Kitzmiller while Quapple tries to close.
And in the last 2 laps, it is 0.4 of a second that Carson Quapple has eaten into the race lead of Deke McCaskill. So the plan certainly to save and go at the end is paying off for Carson Quapple, but is it going to be enough? 14 laps to go, and a gap that was once about 2 seconds is now down to about 1.
Reminder to some of the new fans that may be watching, since we are inside the final 25 laps, we will not see a competition caution from here to the finish. Should the yellow flag fly, it would have to be due to an on-track incident or causation. So Quapple is not guaranteed a chance to re-rack the field here should this stay green. And McCaskill continues to wrestle his way through some of the lap cars.
And he's going to get slowed up here with Blake Lothian on his outside, not catching these lap cars in perhaps the fashion that he would like to, but the same challenge is in front for Carson Quapple. 12 laps to go. McCaskill with a clean pass on Minnie Tyrell. You could see some of the damage on his number 81 car, but it doesn't get any easier up the road for Deke McCaskill, who now has 11 laps to go.
More members of the Touring 12 up the road for McCaskill to try to overtake. That's Cale Gale, who is next to potentially go a lap down. The fluorescent orange number 4, Dylan Wilson, also racing with the 4F of Jonathan Finley as they almost come together in one, right in front of the race leader with 10 to go.
Brandon Willard is working hard with that blue flag, and Dylan Wilson will heed to it as McCaskill puts Cale Gale, Dylan Wilson, and now Jonathan Finley goes a lap down to your race leader in Deke McCaskill.
And that is not what Carson Quapple wants to see. They're double wide in front of him between McCaskill and the runner-up. Here they come out of turn number 4. Wilson yields. Finley nearly gets turned around by Cale Gale, who darts to the bottom, but Quapple 3 wide up top.
Quapple going to stuff it in 3 wide on the top side, and he's going to be able to clear Jonathan Finley. You'd imagine that Cale Gale will lift here and let Carson Quapple to the bottom. That indeed he does. And Quapple, an aggressive move to go up there 3 wide, but with just 7 laps to go, perhaps was his only hope to catching Deke McCaskill.
All the while, Caden Honeycutt has gotten up to and past Ryan Millington for the final spot on the podium. Also in your picture, Connor Hall rounding out your top 5 at a 77. This is the battle for 3rd.
And Millington peeking down to the bottom, but Caden Honeycutt, despite what he has there, the troubles he's gone through in this race, has been able to make it work. Jacob Hefner once again making up some spots. Brendan Butterbean Queen, you can see how much speed that car has with just 5 laps to go. He's definitely got some left in his tires, and Caden Honeycutt looks to have cleared for 3rd. No chance of catching your top 2, but a solid rebound and comeback here for Caden Honeycutt.
And Jacob Hefner can see 3rd, 4th, and 5th right up the road. They all rim ride around the pair of 4s on the racetrack that have just fallen a lap off the leaders. And now there is Hefner with Brendan Butterbean Queen inside. That's a race for 6, 95 and 03.
Just 4 laps to go, and that gap that we were talking about between Deke McCaskill and Carson Quapple has held steady and even started to balloon a little bit as Deke McCaskill clears the lap. Traffic and clearly had something a little bit left. 2 laps to go for Deke McCaskill.
McCaskill continues to lap his way up through the field. It's been an incredible day for some of the veterans of our sport. Making a series-leading 85th start, looking to grab another Cars Late Model Stock Tour win. Here comes Deke McCaskill to the white flag.
White flag in the air, and one more trip around Southern National Motorsports Park for Deke McCaskill. He will become the 3rd driver in series history to reach the 10-win mark, as through turns 3 and 4, Deke McCaskill wins the Per Year Tank Lines 225 and holds off Carson Quapple in this new era for the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour.
What an unbelievable job by Deke McCaskill. As we mentioned, it was not necessarily public knowledge that he may be on a path to what could be his 2nd Cars Late Model Stock Championship, should this momentum carry him through the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour season. Carson Quapple comes up to congratulate McCaskill on a well-earned victory here at a racetrack that he considers home.
And you can see the fans here. They love seeing somebody like Deke McCaskill, who has spent so much time. Again, he was winning limited late model races at this track before most of the field was born yet. In 1994, that's when he started winning races here at Southern National Motorsports Park. And this is what we love about the Cars Tour, is you have the young guns and Carson Quapple, but also these experienced veterans, and you're going to see one heck of a celebration here for Deke McCaskill, your winner at Southern National Motorsports Park.
You mentioned, Blake, you look at the career accomplishments for McCaskill. The box score may not be all that surprising that McCaskill came out here and did this here today. You mentioned the fact his 10th career win. He sits 2nd all-time in career polls and also leads the series in top 5s, 42. Count this victory, that moves it up to 43. And McCaskill is proving that perhaps, even though he has been seen as a dominant fixture in Cars Late Model Stock racing, perhaps his best year still lies ahead of him. Brandon Willard going down to greet McCaskill with the checkered flag in hand as he will celebrate for all those who've come out. And I'll tell you what, you always want to win at your sponsor's event. Per Year Tank Lines, a big supporter. Unfortunately, though, a bit of a blooper here for McCaskill. He had a perfect race right up until then.
That's the only mistake right here, is the VP Racing Fuels checkered flag sits like debris over here off the exit of turn number 4. I think he'll be okay. You know, he's allowed to make that mistake, and it allows him to wave to these fans that, again, love him so dearly at this racetrack.
Everyone's allowed a mulligan. That was Deke's mulligan for the afternoon here, no doubt. And again, Per Year Tank Lines not only put their name on this race, but also longtime supporter of Deke McCaskill's late model stock and professional motorsports career. The Raleigh, North Carolina native coming down to celebrate with quite the group of friends, family, and team members who will be greeting him in Edelbrock Victory Lane. What a way to start off your 2023
Solid Rock Carriers Cars late model stock season. McCaskill back in victory lane.
It's the first time for him winning. He was mentioning on the Stickered Up podcast that he had not won at this track since 2016. And I think this is a great way to come back and get the job done right. As we're going to head down to Edelbrock Victory Lane with Jacqueline Drake and your race winner, Deke McCaskill.
Wow, the energy is high down here as Deke's going to receive congratulations from many of his teammates as well as Carson Kvapil. Deke McCaskill has won in every year of the Cars Tour existence except for one, and etching his name into that 10-win list under the series. Speaking to him a little bit earlier today, the veteran in the field, one of the oldest drivers in this young field, and he said, you know, I wanted to be a part of the Cars Tour because I wanted to switch up my life. I needed a little bit more energy, so he came into the Cars Tour in the first season. And he said it was just so much fun. We've had so many great memories here. I've had the best time with my family and my friends. And now another win here in 2023, adding to that memory. And out of the car, Deke McCaskill. Deke, congratulations. The smile on your face really says it all. But, you know, I want to ask you, Carson Kvapil was working his way right through the lap traffic just like you were. How often were you looking in that rearview mirror to see how close he was?
And they started calling lap times out, and I just ignored it and just tried to hit my marks. I mean, I got a million laps around this place. I just knew where to time the lap cars, and what an awesome way to start off the season at my home track. I mean, my name's etched up there in the grandstands. How special is that? Just a lot of great memories, man. We're just this is just a backyard team, man. We're no full-time employees, and come out here and outrun some of these guys is truly, truly special. I've been doing this a long time, and it seems like every Cars win I get, it just gets more special and more special. I mean, one Cars win, like I told you earlier, will just make your whole season. So what a race car. Brandon Ernest, we had an awesome test last Sunday at Orange County Speedway, and he put so much front turn and so much rear grip in this car. I owe it everything to him. I just appreciate all his help and support. John West Racing Engines, David West, what a motor, man. This piece was awesome. RNS Race Cars, Marcus, Tracy Richmond, all their help, man. They really turned my career around. And Per Year Tank Lines, what a great way to win up at his sponsor race. And Blackgate Hunting Products, Riding Lemons has come on board. We got a totally different paint scheme. No more blue, white, red, and black. Blackgate Hunting Products. Be sure to check them out, man. They make awesome trail cameras, and that's what we're here for. We're using racing as advertising. That's what we're trying to do here. And just appreciate Flow Racing, Car Store, all these new owners coming in. There's a lot of exciting things going to happen, I see in the future, and we'll see if we can stick around for it.
We were taking a look at the stat sheet, and you've added your name to the short list of drivers now in the series that has 10 wins. Where does that rate on your resume of importance to you?
Oh, it's awesome, man. The competition just steps up every year, and we're trying our best to keep up with it. And we're, like I said, my son-in-law, Hunter, he worked his butt off today and does an awesome job spotting for me. Man, I just got so many people I got to thank. Bobby Gregory Weldon, Bradley at Graphics Unlimited for doing this awesome wrap. Mel's Ignition, Racing Radios. Like I said, David West, man. My dad, he's at home watching this. He had back surgery. He wasn't able to make it, and I got him a smart TV for the first time 2 weeks ago so he could sit at home and watch it on Flow. So just appreciate all y'all, what y'all do for short track racing. You know, when I was doing this 20, 30 years ago, I never envisioned anything like this in the future. So this is really, really special.
Congratulations. Deke McCaskill's going to bring home the late model stock win at Southern National.
That he is, and what a great performance for Deke McCaskill as he gets it done. And in a couple of moments, we'll hear from a driver that came up real close to challenging Deke McCaskill for that race win. Your pole sitter here for this race, and just not enough left in the tank for Carson Kvapil, who looked those last 15 or so laps to really have something for McCaskill, and then it just all went away, and that 08 just took off.
The party continues for McCaskill, and I got to say, what does it mean for this driver who, as we mentioned, has already accomplished so much in this tour, in this series? just look at the level of mutual respect. So many drivers have come on over to congratulate. Caden Honeycutt drove up alongside. Made sure he did not go into the pit area without congratulating Deke on this victory here this afternoon. We saw Carson Quapple and many, many others come to victory lane, and then the congratulations continue on. But as you mentioned, Blake, there was one driver who came up just one spot short. He's standing by with Jacqueline Drake.
Carson Quapple finishing on the podium, receiving a little bit of a high five from his dad, Travis. But Carson, you did all you could there, just making your way through the lap traffic. But what more did you need to make it one spot better?
I think we just needed to get the traffic a little bit better. I thought we were actually, once we got all clear of traffic and stuff, I thought we were actually just a little bit faster than him. I thought our car was really, really good. And just, he was a little better through the traffic. And I don't really know what we could really do about that, but I'm still really happy to kick off the season with Virginia Motorsports guys with a pole in the second.
Absolutely. Congrats to you. Second place today for Carson Quapple.
And Carson Quapple, who talked about even coming into this race, of course, you can't win every race, but I think showing the same consistency that led him to his championship last year, in which he had 14 top fives in 18 starts. I think that's a good recipe for success, and he starts with that today.
Yeah, and it's interesting when we look at some of the drivers in the final rundown. Top 3 drivers, not necessarily made up of touring 12 competitors. However, all of which may be competing for a championship in some right. We mentioned the top 3. One of them, Caden Honeycutt, also standing by with Jacqueline Drake trackside.
Caden, congrats on a podium finish today. And you talk about working your way through the field. How would you describe your race?
Honestly, I was just trying to save as much as could, just like everybody else, and felt like I did a good job at it. Just that with that second to last caution, the 6 and the 24, we're going for an odd spot, and you know it's just a tough situation. They both wanted 5th, and that's totally understandable. It's just the way it happened. Just really sucks. It just destroyed the front of our car and destroyed the rear car. The truck arm the ball was dragging on the ground the entire time. I couldn't even see the rest of the race, hardly so. Just a great car. We managed to come home third, which showed the speed that we had. So just thank Mike Darn, Jason, Braden, Tyler, and for all the hard work. And Reynolds Racing Chassis, Speed Ranch, Quality Tire and Trucking for the help this year. And hopefully 5 more runs like this, a few more adjustments, and we're going to make this thing right and hopefully be in victory lane for the next one at Hickory.
Caden Honeycutt, your third place finisher.
And I think that's certainly a third place run to be proud of for Caden Honeycutt. You mentioned all the issues that he was having, and yet still obviously had something at the end to go up there and compete in a well-earned podium, I guess if we could call it that, for Caden Honeycutt.
Yeah, and obviously, Caden, you saw the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series logo on his fire suit there. We don't expect to see him run full-time, but he will run as many races as he can for Mike Darn Racing. Highest running touring 12 driver takes you to Connor Hall in 4th, and Ryan Millington caps off an incredible weekend with a 5th place finish. And Blake, before we wrap it up here, I heard Deke McCaskill send best wishes to his father. We want to echo those sentiments as well. And I'd be remiss if I didn't take an opportunity to say hello to my own father, John, who's home watching as well, fresh off some surgery. Dad, hope you enjoy the broadcast and can't wait to have you watch a whole bunch more. Hope you're healing up nicely. Blake, what a day.
What a day. And we got through it without Baby Watch coming on. So now
that I know of.
Yeah, that's true. So we can rest assured that hopefully that won't be an issue, and now you can focus on bringing your new kid into the world, which is going to be spectacular. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, I will say I did want to offer up to all Cars Tour competitors, now that I'm going to have a baby girl, hopefully here by next week. Fandom's up in the air. Whoever wants to try to recruit her as a fan, she's free game, because she's definitely going to be at the racetrack quite often. Keely and my wife and everyone are buying all the right clothing and such to bring her to the racetrack, so I can't wait. But, man, I can't wait for another one of these. We got to wait, 2 weeks till we get to Florence? That seems like too long.
Yep, 2 weeks until we return once again with the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour to Florence Motor Speedway. And, boy, that's going to be one exciting show as well. If the Icebreaker and the South Carolina 400 is any indication, these late model stocks are going to put on one heck of a show out there. But for everybody that's a part of our broadcast crew, and for everybody watching out on Flow Racing for the first time in this Cars Tour, we thank you so much for following us along here in the Puryear Tank Lines 225. We will see you in 2 weeks' time at the Florence Motor Speedway. And until then, from our broadcast partner Eric Brennan and Jacqueline great down on pit road. I'm Blake McCandless saying so long from Southern National Motorsports Park. We bid you farewell and congratulations to today's winner of the Superior Tank Lines 225, Deep McCaskill.